everybody. Welcome to the Gamer's Hearth. I hope you're having an amazing week, an amazing day. Today on the podcast, we're going to be recapping my trip to Summer Game Fest in LA. I'm going to talk to you about the events that I went to, a little bit of the behind the scenes of what the whole experience was like, and then we're going to be talking about some specific games that I saw there that I'm really excited about. If you're unfamiliar with what Summer Game Fest is, it's basically sort of like E3. If you remember, E3 was this big mega games conference all about upcoming games, networking, press getting scoops and stuff like that about upcoming games. Summer Game Fest is a little bit like that, and granted, I've never been to E3, so I'm not probably the best one to make the direct comparisons. It's a series of events and showcases put on by various organizations, various studios and publishers. So you have the showcases, and then you also have an event called Playdays. Playdays is super cool. I'm going to talk more about what that was in just a minute. I'm not going to get into all the details at the moment. I did not attend everything that was there. For example, there was a Ubisoft event that I didn't go to, but I did go to the Summer Game Fest showcase. I went to the 3 days of Playdays, and then I attended the Xbox showcase as well, which was really, really amazing. So I'll talk you through each one of those events. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I did, some of the games that I saw there. I was able to attend because of TikTok. They were the ones that paid for myself and a couple of other creators to go to these events, but I also got invited to certain things by other companies. So TikTok was directly involved in me going to the Summer Game Showcase and the Playdays, and I also attended IGN Live, which I'm not going to talk about that much. I think I will touch on it just a little bit, but I was invited to the Xbox Showcase from Xbox directly. So it was just a couple of different reasons that I was able to attend. The Summer Game Fest Showcase was on June 7th, and that was also the day that I flew up. The flight left at 6 a.m. from Houston. I flew to LA and I went to my hotel. I got to my hotel at like 8 a.m. and I was really concerned because I knew I needed to change clothes before I went to IGN Live in the showcase, but I wasn't going to be able to get into my room until noon. But when I got there, I begged them. I was like, please, do you have anything that I could get into right now? If not, like, it's okay. Can I just leave my luggage here? And they eventually did find me a room, but when he told me about the room, he said, it's by the elevator. Are you sure that's fine? It's right next to the elevator. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure, no big deal. He was like, you're gonna hear it all. I was like, it's okay, no worries. It's worth it for me to be able to get into the room right now. So I had stayed at this hotel, which was the Freehand in downtown LA. I had stayed there before last year. I actually had checked in on the exact same day the previous year. So the guy was a little bit confused. He was like, were you here last year? When you come out of the elevator, you are led directly into a narrow hallway, but in that little enclave where the elevators are, there's a door directly off to the side where it's just all glass. You can't see through the glass, and I never really knew what that was, but apparently those are rooms, and that is where I stayed. My room was literally like 5 steps away from the elevator, and it was a really nice room. It had kind of an odd shape, I guess, because of where it was located, but I really loved staying there. The first place I went to was IGN Live. They had kind of set us up with TikTok over there, and I kind of made an appearance, but I didn't stay for a super long time. There honestly just wasn't a lot for us to do there, and it was a little bit of a tricky situation because IGN Live took place the exact same days as Playdays, and I had been invited to both. It was basically either going to be going back and forth between the two, or I was going to have to pick one. And Playdays, which I had attended last year, I knew was super valuable to me as a creator. It was a super awesome experience, so I chose to spend my time mostly at Playdays. But IGN Live was a pretty cool event. It was a little bit overstimulating, honestly. They had panels, but when I imagine panels, I imagine different rooms that are a little bit quiet where you can actually hear the people talking. But what it actually was basically this room with a stage in the front, really loud music blaring, and they're like shooting out t-shirts and other merch into the crowd while the people up at the front are talking or showing off whatever trailer or footage they have. Meanwhile, there's like merch booths all around. The room was dark. There was flashing lights. There was a little TikTok creator lounge that was pretty cool. They had computers set up where you could stream from IGN Live if you wanted to. They had TV set up where you could play games. That was pretty cool. But again, I really chose to spend most of my time at Playdays. After I spent some time there, I headed straight to the Summer Game Fest showcase. The showcase took place at YouTube Theater. I love attending the showcase. It feels so cool to be in the room where that is happening. It's cool to see Jeff Keighley on the stage. I did feel like the energy was kind of low. Like I wasn't completely blown away by anything that was there. There were some really cool indie games shown, which I'll talk about in just a second. But in general, it just felt a little lacking. It felt like most of the cooler and more wow reveals happened at the other showcases, but it really kind of gets the hype going. It's the first event at Summer Game Fest. There were a couple of really cool like indie and cozy games that were there that I'm going to talk about so that they can be on your radar. One that was a huge surprise to me that I had no idea was coming was Civilization 7. This is a continuation of the strategy game franchise. If you're not familiar, this is a franchise that allows you to build an empire in the world. In this one, you get to rule as one of the many legendary leaders from across history. You establish your civilization, you construct cities and architectural wonders to expand your territory. You can choose whether you conquer or cooperate with the other civilizations that you are rivals with. It's a very similar thing to the previous Civilization games, but they always come with, updated graphics, updated mechanics and things like that. So that was a huge surprise that I'm really excited about. Another game that looks absolutely stunning, which is published by Devolver, is Neva. Neva is a game that comes from the developers of the game Grease. And if you know anything about that game, that is an absolutely gorgeous, heart-wrenching, change your life kind of game. And so I expect nothing less from Neva as well. Neva is about a young woman named Alba, and she is bound to a curious wolf cub after a traumatic encounter with some dark forces. Essentially, you're going on a journey with your wolf cub through a once beautiful world. Your relationship with the wolf evolves. You have to learn to work together with the wolf. It's about them finding companionship with each other and finding a new home for themselves in this world, and it looks gorgeous. The visually stunning. I can already tell that this is going to be a beautiful story. I'm very, very excited for it. We also got to look at Lego Horizon Adventures, which is an upcoming Lego game that takes place in the world of Horizon Zero Dawn. It's a playful and lighthearted story which is inspired by the events of that game. It's also a two-person multiplayer game with couch or online co-op, which I think is really cool. And what I really like is that it also has some really cozy elements like decorating. So the village that you live in, you can give it a makeover, you can decorate it in a lot of different ways. And then you also have like outfits that you can unlock and you can wear those outfits. It looks really cute. I always love pretty much anything that Lego comes out with in terms of video games. Their video games always are amazing. So I'm really excited to get this one. We also got to look at the game Deer and Boy, which is a cinematic platformer where you follow the journey of a boy who runs away after the death of his parents, I believe. And during his flight, he runs into an unexpected companion, which is a deer who I think also lost their parents. And they form a bond and they go on a journey together, and they have to overcome all of the obstacles, and it says that they will change their lives forever. So this is another one that I can already tell is going to be a very like heart-wrenching and beautiful story. The art style is absolutely beautiful. I'm always gonna love an animal companion game, so this one I'm really, really excited about too. And then I think the one that got me probably the most excited is this game called Wanderstop. Wanderstop is a narrative-centric cozy game about change and tea. So you play as a fallen fighter named Alta, and you manage a tea shop in this magical forest. So your gameplay revolves around that, around caring for the tea shop, serving customers, cleaning up, making tea. But what makes this really interesting to me is that the main character Alta doesn't want to be there. It's a management game about ritual, but based on the trailer and based upon the fact that that character seems to have some sort of an interesting history, it feels like there's going to be a little bit more than meets the eye here. And I think that's awesome. I feel like we're almost at a point now with these management games where I don't think, maybe it's not necessary, but it really does a lot for the game if they can add a little something extra. Like, yes, you are managing a tea shop, but what is going to make your game in particular stand out? A certain narrative beat or some sort of feature or something that makes it stand out. And so this narrative seems super, super interesting. I am very intrigued by the story. Another thing that is very interesting about this game is it comes from the team Ivy Road, which has a lot of very interesting developers in it, including the creator of the Stanley Parable. That tells you a lot right in there about the tone of this game. And another person in the studio is the co-creator of Gone Home, which is a very emotionally charged and interesting type of game. So super interesting game from a super interesting team. I am very, very excited for that one, and I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on it. Right now, there's not a date on it or anything like that, so we're just going to have to keep watching. So that was the showcase. After the showcase, which was around like 4 o'clock, I literally went straight back to my hotel and crashed because I was so tired, and I was a little bit jet lagged, not like a lot, but it was a 2-hour difference. So by 8 o'clock, it was like 10 p.m. in my internal clock, and I was so exhausted. So I went to sleep really, really early. And then the next day we had play days. Now let me try to describe exactly what play days is to you. So think of it sort of like a convention center. If you've ever been to a convention, most of them, or at least most of the ones that I've been in, take place in a large room. And in the room, you have different booths set up for different companies, artists, publishers, whatever. Now, this is kind of a similar thing, except for this takes place on what they call a campus. So it's in downtown LA, and a lot of it is outdoors, and it encompasses a lot of different buildings. So you're in this blocked off area that includes a lot of different buildings, both buildings that are there all the time, but then they also construct little like tents or little areas that are kind of like buildings, but they're obviously like a temporary thing. There is one large room, and that large room has a lot of booths set up for smaller games or anything that doesn't really warrant a huge like building of its own. So for example, they had a couple of booths there for Day of the Devs. Day of the Devs is an indie showcase. And so a lot of the indie games that were showcased at Day of the Devs, you could go in there and you could play demos. And it was really cool because the developers would be there or the publishers would be there. So you could chat with them about the game. They could kind of guide you through what the game was. And that was really fun. But then they also had some areas that were designated specifically for certain publishers. For example, Netflix had its own like freestanding building, which was really cool. I'll talk about that more in just a second. Devolver also had its own freestanding building. Amazon had its own building. Bandai Namco had its own building. And these you would get to not from that main building, but it was all outside. You would just walk around outside and go from place to place. They also had a lot of seating areas and stuff like that. The idea is you have some downtime. You could go, you could work, you could, type up your story or, whatever the situation was for you. And the best part was they had food and drink everywhere, and all of it was free. There was literally a coffee shop where you could get free coffees all day long, and the coffee was actually so good. And then also at the coffee shop, they had sodas just out that you could grab. They had snacks out all the time that you could grab. They also had a couple of food trucks, which were so delicious, and we got meal passes. So you could get one meal a day from these food trucks. And there was also a pizza place, which was so good. I loved it so much. No matter how many appointments you had in that day, you could kind of just like show up in the morning and you could basically hang out there, go to your appointments, go get some food, sit down, eat, do some work, go to your other appointments. It feels so good to be there. Like it's busy, but it also feels unbusy. It feels calm. I'm comparing it to when I went to Comic-Con a few years ago, and it felt so chaotic and hectic all the time. And a lot of the booths were kind of the same sort of things, but because of the way that SGF is set up, it feels very, I don't want to say relaxing because it is busy, but it doesn't feel stressful or frustrating to be there. And it's never crowded. It doesn't feel like there's people around you all the time. I never had any trouble finding somewhere to sit. It's honestly an awesome experience. Now, this was across 3 days. So I'm going to kind of just lump in the 3 days together because my appointments, all of these appointments that I have were kind of spread out across the 3 days. Keep in mind that some of the games that I played are under embargo for a little bit longer, so I can't talk to you much about them. I'll just tell you that I played them and just know that when I can talk about them, I will. First thing that I played was Hello Kitty Island Adventure. I was so excited to go chat with the folks over there. They are such a lovely team, and I had a lot of fun playing that game. Can't talk to you too much about that, but I will when I can. I think one of my favorite booth setups was the Day of the Devs booths because it had all of the indie games, and I was definitely coming at this from the perspective of focusing on the indie games and the cozy games where I could. So some of the games that I played over there, the first one was Building Relationships, which that game is absolutely wild, y'all. The developer of the game calls it a short hike, but stupid. He also told me that this game had the energy of your wild 2 a.m., 3 a.m. thoughts. It definitely comes through. It's such a silly game. You play as a house on a date, and you go around and you meet different eccentric buildings. They're bachelor pads. You can romance them. And yeah, he told me basically this is a game about horny houses. It's so funny. The writing is hilarious. It's very silly, and I loved it so much. Another game that I played at the Day of the Devs booth was While Waiting. This is a transformative adventure about the art of waiting. You clear the game by doing nothing, but you can discover the power of acceptance and patience in numerous situations from birth to death. So basically you get dropped into this scenario and you're told, okay, wait for the rain to stop. And they give you some suggestions over to the side. They'll say these are some basically achievements, I guess, that you can get. You have the choice. You can either just sit there and wait and do nothing and just literally stare at the screen until the rain passes and you'll get a little achievement for that. Or you can kind of explore the world and do different things. It looks hand-drawn. It's absolutely beautiful. I love the artwork and I had a lot of fun playing this one. Another one that I played, which is from the publisher Fellow Traveler, and it is from the creator of Coffee Talk and What Comes After. So if you know anything about Coffee Talk, the creator of that game, Fami, sadly passed away. From what I understand, he was working on this game when he passed away. His friends and colleagues took over and continued the game after his death. This is a slice of life game set in modern Jakarta about love, loss, and finding your own way forward. So you play as Rama. They're a young musician who is struggling to move on with their life after their girlfriend Sinta passed away. And they start to see Sinta, and Sinta starts talking to them and making commentary about the things that they're doing in their life. It's really gorgeous. The setting of it is very interesting, and the setting feels like it plays a big role in the story of the game itself, which I think is so awesome. It seems like it's going to be a really heartwarming and also devastating and beautiful story. So I'm definitely going to be playing that one when it comes out. And it comes out in Q3 2024, so pretty soon. Those were my faves from Day of the Devs. Another thing that I absolutely, probably my favorite experience of all of them, to be honest, was the Netflix tent. They had a little tent set up, and when you walked in, it was like walking into a different world. It was themed of like summer camp. That's what the theming inside felt like. They had tents set up. They had these like wooden signposts. They also had a thing off to the side where you could make s'mores. So I actually ended up making s'mores with the creative director of Cozy Grove. I love Cozy Grove, but I feel like I love Cozy Grove even more now that I've met the developers because they're such an amazing bunch of people. I love them so much. Let me talk to you really quickly about the games that I played there in the Netflix tent. The first one was Cozy Grove 2, which is Cozy Grove Camp Spirit. It's very similar to the Cozy Grove that you know and love, but it has new bears, new friends to meet, a couple of new features, and an all-new storyline. I played a little bit of that and I had an amazing time. It was so fun. The bears that I met were amazing, and just I fell in love immediately with this game. This one comes out on June 25th, so very, very soon. It is mobile only via Netflix game, so it's not going to come out on PC and Switch. They're focusing on their Netflix release, but you'll be able to play that game included with your Netflix subscription. I also played Arranger, which is a role puzzling adventure. It's not my usual style of game, but I thought it was so interesting. It follows the story of Gemma, who's a small town misfit on a journey of self-discovery. Now, what I loved about this game, and I was talking to the developer extensively about this, is the story and the setting of it it is so fascinating. It takes place in this town that is completely isolated and nobody leaves the town because supposedly outside of the town, it's super dangerous, it's hazardous, there's something out there that is unsafe. And nobody really knows what it is, but everybody just accepts at face value that you can't leave the town. Now, Gemma is kind of a misfit and nobody really likes Gemma. So she's going to go out and she's going to leave. And I only played the beginning part, but I feel like the game is going to kind of revolve around figuring out what is out there, going on adventures out there outside of the city. And I love that storyline, that kind of storyline about we don't know what's out there, but we just accept that we don't go out there, you know? It's giving like Silo. I love that. So I'm very intrigued by this story. The puzzles were fun. They're challenging, but not too challenging to where you're just going to be banging your head against a wall, not able to figure them out. And the developers were absolutely lovely, super passionate about what they do. And that was awesome. I also played a game called Harmonium, and the developers of Harmonium told me that their goal was to make an interactive Pixar movie. And it really does give that vibe off. The art style very much is reminiscent of Pixar. Just kind of the story is very reminiscent of Pixar. They said that they were inspired a lot by Coco. This is an interactive sign language musical and adventure narrative game that follows Melody Mikado. She is a 10-year-old Filipina-American musician who became deaf at a very young age. She has this upcoming debut show, and her goal is to create a new type of music that can be felt, seen, and is accessible to her friends. And eventually she gets pulled into this musical and visual wonderland called Harmonium, and she has to face cacophony, which is this all-consuming force that can only be defeated with a masterpiece symphony. And so she goes on this adventure. There's environmental puzzles and different things to figure out. And what I thought was really awesome is that this is a game with a deaf main character that is created by people in the deaf community. The team is made up of writers, designers, artists, animators that are in the deaf community. The game features ASL, and they also focus on providing a very accessible experience. Accessibility design, they say, has been baked in from the start. So that was like their priority going into this, is creating an accessible experience. And a lot of the game mechanics revolve around sign language, which is really awesome as well. Absolutely stunner of a game. And again, I know I keep saying this, but the developers were so lovely. I just loved chatting with them. It's such a joy. I think I'm going to get emotional, but I think I wasn't expecting to get emotional, but I think games are so impactful to me. And I think sometimes when you play games, you forget that the developers of the games created the games because they love games too. So just having that experience of being able to go and talk to these people that are so passionate about what they're creating was honestly just the best experience in the world. So I don't know why I'm crying, but it was awesome. Anyways, the other game that I played was The Dragon Prince Zadia, which is a hero-based action RPG that is coming to mobile. It was super fun, and what I like is that because it's through Netflix, it comes with your Netflix subscription. There's not any like microtransactions or premium purchases or anything, which is so nice. If you're familiar with the show, you can play as the different characters in Dragon Prince. It's a multiplayer game, so I played it with like me and two of the developers, and we went and we had our little adventures. The combat was really fun. It felt very satisfying, and I loved it. So I'm definitely going to play that with me and my friends that also love The Dragon Prince. So that was the Netflix tent. The other two cool things that I want to just mention, but I can't really talk about yet, was number one, I got to play Magic the Gathering with a new themed deck that is coming out. And I also got to play Tales of the Shire. I'll talk more about that later. I also got to hang out a little bit at the Devolver tent, which was so cool. They had their own bar there with like themed drinks around Devolver games. I got to chat with some folks there, including finally meeting a mutual of mine, Jared, who is an absolutely amazing and very influential person in the indie game space. And that was awesome. Their tent was like such a vibe. It was such a cool place to be. And let me also touch quickly on the Xbox showcase. It was on June 9th. It was swanky, y'all. It was a very lush experience. They had their own like media lounge, which was kind of outdoors and had this absolutely stunning view of LA. They had breakfast for us. They had drinks. I got there early, so I just hung out a little bit up there with me and some of the other TikTok creators that were there. And then we went down into the showcase itself, which was in the theater. They gave us popcorn and water to watch the show, which was really cool because I'm just there like, Now, the Xbox showcase, y'all, the Xbox showcase was amazing. The energy in that room was actually wild. Everyone was so excited to be there. Everyone was so hyped about the games. People were calling stuff out and shouting things. It was actually really cool because all the Xbox execs were like sitting 2 rows ahead of me and where the other TikTok creators were. Literally, like Phil Spencer was so close to me. And at one point, someone in the crowd yelled, "It's too many games!" And one of the, I don't know who it was, but one of the Xbox execs was like, "More games!" It was really funny. I'm not gonna lie, the Xbox showcase is not really the place to be for cozy games and indie games. They did show so many awesome things that people were so hyped about. The next Doom game, the next Gears game. They had a new cinematic for World of Warcraft, The War Within, which was so cool. Now, what I was the most hype about that I had been waiting for and waiting was the Dragon Age trailer. They had a little teaser trailer for Dragon Age, the Veilguard there, and I was so hype. I filmed it with my phone while it was happening, and I swear, like, you can just hear me shouting the entire time. It was so hype. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Oh my god. Oh, I knew it. He was gonna be in it. Let's go! Let's go! I'm really in the trenches with the Dragon Age community. And for weeks preceding this event, we had been speculating, like, what are we going to see at Summer Game Fest? Are we going to see anything at the Xbox showcase? There had been all these like little drops of hints from various like insiders who had insider information about what was coming when. And it was so hyped to actually see it. Now, the trailer itself did garner a little bit of negative attention because they had a stylized art style, which is not the art style that's going to be in the game. But a lot of people were really freaked out by the tone and the art style of the trailer. I wasn't worried about it because I know that Dragon Age tends to be a little bit goofy with their trailers. Overall, it was really hype. We finally got to see all the characters and everything like that. They also had a game shown there that was really cute called Winter Burrow. Winter Burrow has, first of all, a beautiful storybook art style. It is a cozy woodland survival game about a mouse returning home to restore their childhood burrow. So you explore, gather resources, craft, knit warm sweaters, bake pies, and meet the locals. They say that this one has cozy, approachable survival. So I know a lot of people who like cozy games aren't really into survival games because they can be a little bit stressful maybe, or it's just maybe not your thing. But they say that this one is a survival game that you play at your own pace. So you get to customize your character, you decorate your burrow, and you choose a path that fits your play style, which I really appreciate. So this one, super hype about. I am 100% going to be playing this one. This one, they say, comes out in Q1 2025. That was the basic gist of the main things that I did and that I saw. So that was a really awesome experience. It was also a very interesting experience being there as a content creator and not as a journalist. I feel like there is still a lot of a divide, I think, between media, traditional media, and journalists and like press and content creators when it comes to this industry. And honestly, I feel like I don't really have a lot of smart stuff to say about that at the moment, other than you could kind of feel it. And when I say that, I don't mean that people were rude to me or anything like that. Every single person, whether it was a developer or a journalist or another content creator that I spoke to, was more than kind, was more than welcoming. But when you just look at it from kind of a systemic level, it feels like there's a lot of misunderstanding and there's a lot of divide between the two areas of gaming press. It's definitely a topic I want to touch on more in the future. I feel like I'm still kind of processing it a little bit. I'm going to be thinking about this because it's a very interesting thing that I saw, and I would love to kind of bridge that gap a little bit more, or just maybe foster more understanding between the two groups. So anyways, I had an amazing time. I met some amazing people. I came away from this event feeling refreshed, rejuvenated, excited about my role, ready to create more content, ready to dive more into industry topics. I'm excited to tell y'all more about the games that I can't tell y'all about yet. We'll definitely touch on those as soon as I can. Thank you so much for watching or listening. You can find me all over the internet. I'm on Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. I have links to all of those in my show notes or my description if you want to follow me over there for even more gaming content. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you next time we gather around the hearth. Bye.